No, absolutely not. In fact, they could bring a lot more forward. There have been rallies out on the west steps of the Capitol, groups like the Colorado Fiscal Policy Institute saying, you're not doing enough. Business is not sharing the sacrifice enough at this point. You know, schools are having to cut employees, services for disabled Coloradans are getting cut, and they need to do more. And in fact, you're already starting to see not specific tax exemptions coming up that are getting cut, but more bills that are coming up that are saying we're going to find money elsewhere. There's a bill that was introduced a couple of weeks ago that would cap at $250,000 the amount of each worker's salary that a business can count as operating expenses. Operating expenses are fully written off as part of a tax liability. This would mean the companies that pay a lot of people high money don't get to do that. There's another bill that was just introduced about a week ago that would go back, and it won't have an effect right away, but if passed, it would make anybody who gets an economic development incentive or one of these tax exemptions submit a report saying, hey, here's how it's helping the economy, here's how it's creating jobs, and would allow the Economic Development Commission, if they thought they weren't meeting the goals, to go back and yank that incentive money from the group. So you're seeing a lot more of these that people are starting to think, yeah, maybe we're not doing enough.
How much of this, you know, and I know as a Republican I'm supposed to scream, this is an outrage. What the outrage is that it's not going to a vote. But a lot of these taxes were put in place when Republicans, a lot of the tax exemptions, I should say, were put in place when Republicans were in charge. And a lot of them I could put under the label of corporate welfare. They've got a good lobbyist, so the producers of bull semen got a permanent tax break. I can't tell you that I'm crying a lot of tears that tax break is gone, but it should be done legally.
Yeah, I think, and that's the argument that you hear from most Republican lawmakers, is that this, they believe, violates Tabor. The Supreme Court says it doesn't. I think the Democrats have the majority. They're in charge down there for now, and so they could push through even more. I think the obvious reason why they're not, November. Election year politics, and I mean, because they've got the numbers. It doesn't matter how long and how loud the minority is. At the end of the day, we've seen it. The Democrats can push these things through.
Doesn't this hurt the Democrats in the fall in that they're going to remember that it was Joe Rice who said, let's increase your taxes on your cars $40 a year, and if you haven't paid if you're not up to date, it's another $100, making people who have several cars very, very upset.
Farmers again,
and
with
now,
a lot of different
vehicles.
Now,
I mean, I understand the Ritter administration has been able to hack off pretty much every constituency group in Colorado, but now he's hacked off the 7-year-olds by taxing soda.
Yeah, but 7-year-olds don't vote.
That's true.
Well, and Ritter's not running.
And Ritter's not running. But a lot of these guys are running, and at some point, isn't that more of a concern for them than a bunch of business guys or Republicans yapping at the mic?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be a concern. I think you see that in the way people are voting, too. For example, none of the 9 bills went through, I'm going to take it back. I think one of them went through on a straight party line vote. But the other 8, there were Democrats voting against each of them. And in most cases, when you look at the Democrats voting no, there were people who are in swing vulnerable districts who didn't stand up and speak against the bill. They just happened to vote no against it. So,
very similar to what Mary or Betsy Markey did up in the 4th Congressional when it came to Obamacare. She would have voted for it if she had to. There were enough votes to pass it out of the House. Right. But in her Republican-leaning district, if she did, it would be the kiss of death for her in November. So you're seeing a lot of that going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ed's exactly right. Some of these votes, you've said, well, wait, why is that person voting no? I didn't hear them say anything. And I think the obvious answer is November. Everybody's on the ballot, you know, with the exception of those folks who are term limited. And I think it's a concern. I mean, you saw before the session Kathleen Curry from Gunnison say that she's an independent. I think for the most part, she's probably voting still with the Democrats.
She's still caucusing with the Democrats, but she's now an independent.
Right, and people are just very cognizant of the fact that the Democratic brand is down, and you see Democrats kind of a little more cautious with their votes.
Speaking of that, you mentioned that we've got a lame duck governor now. He's announced that this is his last session, which means he pretty much has carte blanche. He doesn't have to worry about hacking off anybody. He's going to be just fine. How has that affected the tenor down there? Does he have more power by doing that, or does he have less power because they know he's not going to be a factor next year?
I'm going to go with less, actually.
Really?
And Governor Ritter, to his credit, came out when he announced he wasn't going to run for re-election and said, look, this allows me to make the tough decisions that otherwise might have gotten cut up in politics. And I'll give him that. I don't think his decisions are being affected by this, but I think you're seeing Democrats run bills that maybe Ritter doesn't like so much. And they're saying, well, what's he going to do? You know, I think even as, I think in particular, some of the bills that I just mentioned, Ritter had gone through the budget, said, we found these 13 tax exemptions we're going to cut, and he said repeatedly, this is it. This is all we think we can do. And now Democrats are saying, no, you can do more. So I think, I don't think he's got the full control that he might have of his caucus in the legislature had he decided to run for re-election.
I don't know if his powers really changed that much. I don't know that he really had that much control of the people on the second floor his first 3 years. I think that's one of the criticisms that people have said, is that he has had somewhat of a political tin ear to the lawmakers in the building. And so, but at the same time, he still has his majorities.
I think of his two predecessors, both of whom I had disagreements with on lots of issues. Those guys knew how to run the system. It was, I mean, they were legislators themselves. They never saw on their desk a bill they really wanted to veto when their party was in control. These were the kind of things, don't bring that to my desk, make sure it dies, and if it doesn't die, you're going to be in trouble.
But it's interesting, you look at the governor, and I go back, I mean, obviously the tax exemption is the first big thing he wanted to push through this session. He got them through. He outlined those 13 tax exemptions before the first of the year, and now it's February, and he just signed them into law. You go back to last session, he laid out his main legislative priorities in State of the State. They were transportation funding. It wasn't popular, but he got the faster bill through. He wanted to reform Tabor, the spending cap. Senate Bill 228, he got that bill through. They weren't popular. They maybe didn't help his poll numbers or his chances for re-election, and obviously he's not running anymore. But in terms of getting the things done that he wanted to get done, he hasn't been unsuccessful.
I would argue that the success, though, is not at the state capitol. It's catty-corner to the state capitol in the Supreme Court chambers. He's been able to do all these things because there is a complicit Supreme Court that is not going to stop him and say, oh, I'm sorry, that's a violation of Tabor. You're going to have to ask the people first. Knowing that, the Democrats have been able to do a lot of things that they've wanted to do. Bust the spending limit, the Byrd Arbor limit, which is 6%. And by the way, for people who don't know that, the money that is raised over that 6% goes into capital construction, mostly roads. So really what we're doing by taking away that cap is taking away money from roads. It's the court that is his best friend. I don't think it's the Democrats. They would have loved to pass this no matter who the governor was. Am I wrong?
Well, even if it is the court that's his best friend, maybe that's his most savvy political move, is knowing what he can get through the Supreme Court, not having to worry that the court's going to throw out something that he sends up there. But, you know, it's hard to say, but, I mean, he's certainly been helped by their decisions, but he probably also knows what'll pass muster with the court.
What are some of the other issues that are popping up here? I know there's always the weird social issues, or what we call the goofy bills. I know medical marijuana.
You mean the TV stories, right?
The TV stories, yes. The ones that make good TV stories and good talk radio stories. So we dwell on those. Yeah, your specialty. Give me some of the better ones.
Oh, I think this session's all about, in terms of those kind of stories, it starts and ends with medical marijuana. I mean, the fact that we've just seen this explosion of dispensaries and the signage and the advertising in the westward, everybody's paying attention to this now. You saw lawmakers, city councilmen in Denver, everywhere. People are making hay out of this issue politically, and they're trying at the Capitol to come up with some way to regulate this industry, and that's still a process that's, is yet to reach its conclusion. I don't think we are anywhere near the end on that.
Although we're going to see pretty tight regulations come out this session. I don't think there's any way to go about that any other way. Would you agree that the medical marijuana laws are going to be tightened, the rules will be tightened, and there'll be more court fights after?
I suspect. In fact, you've already seen the first Romer bill flew through the Senate. It's flying through the House so far. I think you are going to see this is one issue that people can actually get around, that both sides want to say, oh yeah, everyone's up in arms about the medical marijuana dispensaries popping up next to the ice cream shop down the street. We can regulate this. This is a great election year issue for both parties.
And the lawmakers
although
if
you're
going to have too much time on
if you're going to have a pot shop next to an ice cream store, that's just mutual benefit for both of them.
You think it would help the ice cream shop quite a bit?
I'm hungry. I need some ice cream. Yeah, there's no question. That in the convenience store for some Oreos. Beyond medical marijuana, what else has popped out that's just, you look at it and go, wait a second, I thought we were in a fiscal crisis.
Well, there have been some bills that I think you're alluding to, one being a Senate bill that was killed that a lot of people paid attention to because it was talking about high school Indian mascots and a process there, and a lot of people...
Whose bill was that?
That was Senator Suzanne Williams' bill, and that's been since taken off.
This was to say you can't name your high school mascot after an Indian name,